All right, hey, welcome to our podcast, Business for Beginners. We're so excited you're here. This is where we share the good, the bad, and the funny of business. We share that this is raw, unscripted, and truthful business knowledge to help inspire entrepreneurs build their empires. So I have a very special guest here today. My special guest is Adam McChesney. He is an expert marketer in helping businesses market their business. He owns his own marketing agency, and we're going to let him share a little bit about that, and then we're going to just dive right into this and then make this a fun podcast for you. But you'll listen to this all the way to the end because you're going to learn a lot of cool things today to help your business grow from where you are to where you want to be. And marketing is one of the number one things you're going to have to learn if you're going to grow your business. So welcome, Adam McChesney.
Eric, thanks for having me. I love these chairs. I love these chairs.
I like it too. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited to be here. Been following you for a while, so thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited that you're here because, I did have you build a website for me. I had your company do that for us, and you are an expert in marketing.
Appreciate that.
You've been doing that for a long time. So first of all, how did you get into the marketing business? How did you get into doing what you're, because I know you had a past history where you weren't in this, but now you are in this.
Yeah, so going back to 2016, I got in medical device sales. So I worked for a very small company here in St. Louis, got my feet wet in that industry. I traveled pretty much 75% of the year on the East Coast, working for a company here out of St. Louis. So it was literally like back and forth, airplanes and hotels, Sunday through Thursday.
Tough life.
And tough life, yeah, especially as my wife and I's relationship at the time, we were starting to get pretty serious. And about a year and a half into that, got super burnt out and got on with a company called ResMed. So if anybody's familiar with CPAP equipment, I sold for ResMed for 3 years. And amazing company, worked my way up. But about 9 months into working at ResMed, I was in an entry-level role that they had just created, and the sales rep in St. Louis ended up going to a sister company. And so I thought, all right, I'm going to go in this entry-level role. I'm going to get, the experience and really learn the products and the customers. Probably for 3 to 5 years is kind of what they told me, and then you'll work your way up to that next level. And so I'm thinking 3 to 5 years out. Well, 9 months in, I have this opportunity, and I applied for the job at the age of 26. And I didn't think I was going to get it. I ended up getting it. And in my first full year, I ended up making almost $200,000.
So that's still good at 26 years old, man.
Yes.
$200,000 a year.
Yeah. So it was, to me, it was like one of those things where, and I'm sure people see it in business, where until you see what's possible, you don't think it's actually possible.
100%.
When I was growing up, it was always like, go to college, get a job, and if you make $100K, like, you're good. So I went from $75K the year before to $200K.
That's a big life changer.
It's huge. And I was just living in a tiny condo at the time, so I didn't have a ton of expenses, and I was thinking about what's that next thing, because I've always kind of had the entrepreneurial mindset. I just didn't have the company or the business to go around it. So then I'm looking at like those next opportunities, and I realized that there's not a whole lot more opportunity except for if I want to obviously get promoted. And in those promotion roles, sometimes those managers are making even less than the sales reps, because I was a top sales rep at the time. So I could go and make maybe a little bit more base, but a lot more responsibility. I'd have to travel more than I already was, because I was still traveling across the state of Missouri. So back in 2018, it had been a couple of months since I had got promoted. And I was just sitting in a hotel room in Kansas City. It was the week before Thanksgiving. And I was like, man, I just want to be home. Because the last 3 weeks I had just been running all over, hitting quota, all those different things. And so I was sitting in a hotel room, and I remember to this day, I typed in how to make money online. And
isn't that funny? How to make money online. That's crazy, dude. You're talking how to make money online.
Yeah, because I was thinking of all these different businesses, and my friends were like, let's go start businesses together. And I'm like, I don't even know where to start. So I made that search, and I got targeted by all these different ads to do Amazon drop shipping, Amazon drop shipping, eBay reselling, all those things that everybody tries to get their feet wet in. And none of it really appeased to me. Well, I then get retargeted by an ad because of that search on Facebook that essentially was a picture of this big apartment complex. And it said, wouldn't it be amazing if you could own this apartment complex, but in a digital format? So it's basically like, I'm going to teach you how to be a digital landlord without having to buy an apartment complex. So you're going to do this online through building websites and digital marketing.
Interesting.
So I bought the course. I bought it for $7,000, and I started to kind of plug away. And I was like, man, this is a side hustle because I don't need the money. But if this actually ends up working and is even a fraction of what people are talking about can do, like, this could be something that I could eventually go into full time. So I built my first website in like 4 weeks. And it's an appliance repair website here in St. Louis that's still around. Essentially, the idea was I would build websites, rank them on Google, and then sell the leads. But I would just sell them to one person, basically as a rental format, pay per lead, commission, whatever. And I'm sitting there at my mom's wedding in 4 weeks after I launched the website. And all of a sudden I get a phone call because like I didn't have a person to give the leads to. And I literally pick up the phone and they're like, hello, is this St. Louis Appliance Repair? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're like, we have an appliance that we need fixed.
I'm shocked somebody actually called.
Yeah, we have an appliance that needs to be fixed. And I'm like, okay, so I write down the information, and then of course I go find the company to go do it. But I'm like, man, if this course could teach me, and I obviously did the work to be able to get a phone call like that in 4 weeks, what could I do for other businesses and things like that? So I started building more websites, started to get my feet wet there, and then over the course of the next 2 years, until I went full time with this, I built 200 websites on my own. So I literally was just going in random industries, just trying different things.
Did you have any experience in this at all?
No.
So if you're a beginner in business, I want you to understand that you can start with where you are, with what you have, with just a little bit of knowledge to get you where you want to go. 200 websites is huge, dude. It's huge. Mm-hmm. All right, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good. Great question. And so I literally was like, I don't need the money, but I want to be, when I go full time, like I want to have case studies. I want to have all these different examples. I want people to see the results so that way it makes it easier to sell. I don't want to work harder. I want to work smarter.
Absolutely.
And so over the next couple of years, I really kind of went in spurts because I was waking up at 4 a.m. to build websites. I was doing it after work. I didn't have time during the day. So some days it would be like no work, and then other days it'd be a lot. So I would kind of go in these up and down things in terms of being able to produce websites. Then I got into paid advertising on Facebook and Google and started to do that on the side for some people. And then 2019 comes around and I get married, and I was literally like, man, I'm getting married in October of 2019. I said, 2020 is going to be my year. So December comes of 2019, and I'm like, all right, a year from now, I literally wrote it down on a piece of paper, like I'm going to leave ResMed and go full time in digital marketing. And so I started really, really building up the business. Well, COVID obviously happened in 2020. And I went from traveling all over the state of Missouri to not traveling at all, to literally them asking us to take time off work, and like nobody was calling us because they're all shut down too. So I'm literally just hammering away. And we bought our dream home in May of 2020. So I used the ResMed, W-2 and all that stuff to be able to get the house.
100%.
And then 6 weeks later, I said, I'm going all in. And I was only doing like $12,000 or $13,000 a month in revenue. And again, that was one of the lessons I learned, like revenue isn't profit. It's huge. Well, especially when you're making $200,000 a year with all the benefits, security, and you just bought this home, all these different things. So literally July 1st, 2020, I put my 2 weeks in because it was the end of our fiscal year, and everybody thought I was crazy. Like my manager was like, dude, you literally have the keys. Like you're the youngest key account manager in our entire division by about 10 years. Like you have the keys to everything here, and that nobody could figure it out. And I'm like, man, like you can't, and I'm sure other people relate to this, like if you're an entrepreneur working for somebody else, like you can't take that out of you. There's no position, there's no amount of money, there's nothing that was missing there. I got what I wanted out of there. I got the experience. I got all the connections and things like that. So I ended up going full time in July 2020, and then have ran my own agency. I've merged my agency into Hike Digital, which is where I've been for the last coming up on 3 years. And so I try to do it all on my own. Realized I don't want to be building websites all day. I don't want to be doing the SEO. I need to build a team if I want to make this scalable. So I kind of fumbled my way around for 9 months, and decided to move over to Hike Digital. I've been a franchisee of theirs. Now I'm a partner in the entire company. And I invested into masterminds and coaching about a month in to entrepreneurship full time, because I'm kind of like what you were talking before, is if I can learn something, I want to learn it.
Right.
And sometimes in order to learn, you have to pay to get access to those masterminds, to get around people that are doing things way, way bigger. So I didn't take a paycheck for the first 9 months in our business. Ooh. Not that I couldn't, but like I was investing everything I could so that way I could get to where I'm at now. So I grew that agency from 20 clients on my own. Our book of business right now is about 150 clients as far as what I've produced for Hike Digital. And then I started an auto glass company. I started a landscape design company, all through those initial websites. Because I started to phase away from those 200 websites. Like a lot of those are still out there, but the auto glass company one and the landscape design one were producing so many leads. And I'm like, I'm just going to go start those companies. How hard could it be? completely different situation than running a digital marketing agency, but
oh my God, it's two different worlds.
Two different worlds, but
dude.
that's as quickly, I wanted to tell that first story, but as quickly as I could get through where I'm at.
So I think what you did right, what most people don't get, is that you use it as a side gig to learn first.
Yeah.
Before you quit your full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you look at people and they go, oh, I want to start a business. They've never really taken the time to count the cost of starting a business. What I didn't take a paycheck for 9 months. Because certainly when you start a business, you don't make any money at all.
Yeah.
This is why I like service businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Service-based businesses to me are the best in the world because I teach you how to make money day one.
Mm-hmm.
But that is a different kind of business. Wherein you're building a marketing business, it's something you've never done, it's new, you've been doing it as a side gig. Well, shit, it's a whole other world. Because when you commit to it, it's all or nothing.
Oh yeah, I was back against the wall.
It is. You burned all the boats, you burned all the ropes, you got rid of the water, you weren't even going anywhere.
Yeah.
You were just going to go down.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But you did it though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what was your hardest part of doing it? What was the one thing defining hardest part? Did you ever feel like giving up? Did you ever feel like just quitting? What was hard for you?
All the time. But I think the biggest part about it was really like at every stage in the business, whether it was just me or 8 team members or, now we're at hundreds of team members, is really just me being the bottleneck in getting out of my own way and putting the ego aside at different aspects. So when you first get started, you're wearing all the different hats. Right. It's like, okay, I'm the owner, I'm the CEO, whatever you want to call it, as a one-person agency. I also am the salesperson, I'm the account manager, I'm the website builder, I'm all these other things. Well, as I start to bring more people in, there's always something that I'm still doing that could be delegated. Right. And so whenever we kind of hit a plateau and we kind of like stopped where we were just, hitting a rock, it was usually because of me. And I was too reluctant to give away certain things or give away certain aspects of my day-to-day because I'm like, no, this is my identity, this is who I am. And the last thing that I just gave up about a year ago full-time was the sales because
you're good at it.
I was good at it, and that's what I've grown up doing. But, if you truly want to run a business that's actually a business and not something that requires you to be in it day to day.
You go on vacation and still make money.
Exactly. You have to be able to put your ego aside and all those other things. And the secondary thing to that, what I would say to that is I used to think that sales would fix all problems. Because I came from medical device sales where it was like, you got to hit this quota. If you don't hit this quota, you're not gonna make the money that you thought you were gonna make. 100%. So it was like at all like, it was never anything unethical, but it's like push customers to buy more product now and then figure out the problem next quarter. Well, when you're running a business, I had that mentality is I'm just gonna go start selling, so that way I can hire more people, but I never built the processes and systems. I never had the core values in the beginning because I said, I'll do that stuff when I have a team or when I have more clients. Well, then the problem is when you bring those people on, they have nothing to follow. You're having to walk them through chaos. And I learned along the way, obviously, but those are kind of the two things that I learned that was like, man, if I could go back and do it over again, I would shift the mindset.
From the end backwards.
Correct.
I would tell people this, if you're going to price a business, especially a service-based business, if you're going to price your services, you need to think about where you want to be 5 years from now.
Yeah.
How many employees do you have? Mm-hmm. What's your office? Because it's a lot harder to raise a price a lot as you go versus just start out at the right price.
Setting the standard.
Where you want to be. Because if you set the standard up front and people are like, there's no way, I'm like, no, understand this. If you want to build a business, the goal is to build it to where you delegate all things out to all people, except for the overseeing part of the big picture. And you are the visionary. You're the creator of the risk taker and all those things. Would you do it again?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't know what would have happened. Like, I always think about this. I don't know what would have happened if COVID didn't happen, right? Because, like, I never had the time to truly just give it 6 weeks and see what was possible. And when I had those 6 weeks, it was like, man, like, there's something here. And what I learned over the course of doing it as a side hustle is business owners were just complaining, like, I can't trust my marketing agency. My marketing agency has no case studies. They have no results. They don't know what I'm asking. Right. And I'm just like picking up on all this. I'm like, man, there's so many marketing agencies out there. I just need a little sliver of the space in order to be super successful. I don't have to have the whole piece of the pie.
No, not at all. There's plenty of business for everybody. There's never that much competition as you think.
Exactly.
Because there are going to be those who just suck. Bottom line. Yeah. They don't care. They don't want to learn. They don't want to become members. You talk about investing in yourself in mentorships. I spent $25,000 hiring my first business coach in 2011. I owned a plumbing company. We were at $500,000 a year, and in that 1 year, for that 25 grand, I generated an additional $500,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
So that was a good investment. But that's the biggest problem people have is they don't invest into themselves as they're growing and as they're learning.
Yes.
And I think you've done tremendous with that. So what did your wife think when you said, hey, I want to quit my job?
She was definitely scared. Like, I had always talked about it, and I was talking about it even after we got married. And she kind of thought, okay, like, we'll see what happens. Right. Well, then COVID happens. Then we buy a house. And it wasn't like the medical device industry was going away. So she's like, why are you taking this chance? And I told her, for me, it was like really freedom.
Right.
Like, I looked back to my dad was an entrepreneur, and he was my coach, I grew up playing soccer. But a lot of times he wasn't there. Right. Is because he ran a law firm and all these different things, and he's traveling. And I said, you know what? I look at the people that are in this company that I'm at ResMed, and all amazing people, amazing fathers, amazing husbands, but they're not around a lot. And so I was like, I want to be that dad that like doesn't have to pick and choose. Do I get to go to my son's first soccer game? Can I be the coach? Can I do all these different things? And even though we had just gotten married and we're now expecting our first kid any day now, finally this is like coming to fruition. So she's now seen it over the last 3 years of like, man, Adam manifested this. Right. And for me, it's the freedom of working when I want to, where I want to, with who I want to, and how I want to. I want to be able to eventually go down to Florida for a month and just work. And not have not have things go wrong, right? Not because I don't have to physically be in St. Louis, right? So for me, it was just truly understanding like what I wanted. And the first time when I wrote that down, I realized, man, I'm starting to understand what I want. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but the only way I can do that is do that. So I sold my wife on the original vision. And then there have obviously been rocky times throughout. Like when I told her, like I didn't tell her, like, hey, I'm not paying myself for 9 months. Like that wasn't the original plan.
No,
but I had enough money. Like I told her, I said, hey, I'm going to give myself 9 months. If I don't see a trajectory of this working after 9 months, I can always go back and get another job. Right. Well, then she started to see it because in that first mastermind that I joined, it taught me how to become the authority in digital marketing and leverage personal branding and do all these things. So all of a sudden, my content starts to blow up. Everybody's talking about me online over the last couple of years, and she's like, wow, like, I know, like, she's like, I love you, like, I think you're great, but, like, all these other people are talking about you, and, like, and so all this stuff is actually making sense to her now more and more than ever before because it's kind of coming to fruition, but, like, there have been different times where I've had to be like, this is why we're doing this, or this is why I'm investing. I mean, like, my first year in business, I invested about $15,000 in masterminds and coaching. The second year, I invested $35,000 into one program. Last year, I invested $70K, and we just invested $120,000 into one program for a year. And so I've had to like tell her like each of these things is like the next lever. And so I think originally I just started making those decisions and then telling her. Now I'm like, hey, here's why we're doing it.
Yes.
Here's why we can't build the bookshelves in the house right now because I'm investing this. But I think so many people get it wrong is they want to start, they see a little bit of profit and they're like, man, I'm going to go buy the car. Or I'm going to go buy the new truck. I'm going to go buy the new tools. I'm going to go buy the new office. Like, I'm going to go get that stuff. Like, we just got our first office now a couple months ago. I've done some co-working spaces and things like that. But, like, I could have went and bought the things, but I didn't.
Right.
I invested in myself.
Which is smart. I think that's the smartest thing. I always just took just a base salary of what I needed.
I
never need, because I could have bought a fancy car, could have bought a fancy house. And I'm like, I'm raising all these kids, raising 6 kids. We did buy condos at the beach, though.
Yeah.
But those pay for themselves.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm paying for those because we Airbnb them, so
cash flow
pays for them. But we could have always bought all those things. People are like, well, why do you live in this small house? Even my kids are like, why can't we move to these bigger houses where all of our friends? I'm like, why?
Yeah.
For what purpose? I said, you guys go to Hawaii, you go to here, you go to there. I said, all these trips we take you on is because we live simple versus just taking everything that, because I've seen it to where people, they get the money, they think, oh my God, look at all this money, oh my God, and it's all gone. Versus just take what you need.
Yes.
It makes a big difference. So if you were to tell anybody who just started a business or they're trying to build a business, they just got married, they're trying to sell their wife on an idea, what would you tell them?
Make the vision make sense and sell your wife, for example, if that's what we're talking about, on how she fits into the picture. So what I didn't do in the beginning is I told her what I wanted out of it. And even though I wanted to be the greatest husband and the greatest dad by doing all this stuff, she didn't realize like what I was going to have to sacrifice, which then made her sacrifice over the last couple of years. So it was like, hey, we're going to have to go on your company benefits, which means your paycheck is going to be less. All of those things, I just did it, and I didn't sell her on the vision and show her where she fit into the puzzle. About a year and a half in, once I did work with a business coach, and they were like, man, you're missing the boat here, because my wife and I had struggles in terms of like me being able to articulate what was going on in my business. Because my wife does not care at all. She doesn't know the first thing about what's going on for the most part. But I was just making decisions and living in my own world and not communicating that to her. Not because she didn't care, but I thought she would never actually want to listen to it. Well, it turns out she's like, I don't care if I don't understand it. I want to know what you're going through. There's days I'd come home, be super pissed off, not understand. It's like we lost one project that we thought we were going to get that was going to be $5,000 a month. Like I thought I had it in the bag.
Right.
That would piss me off. Doesn't piss me off anymore, but that would piss me off so much in the beginning. Exactly. It's business. But those types of things would then translate into me bringing that home. And I just didn't do a good job of being like, hey, when this works, here's how you're going to benefit. You're going to be able to, because over the last couple of years, we never thought there was going to be a way when we have our first child here in a couple of days that she was going to be able to quit her job. Well, now she's finally able to quit her job. It's huge. But I wasn't thinking about that. Like I had it in my mind, but I didn't communicate that to her.
Right.
So I thought she was mind reading. And so the more we've had discussions around it of like, hey, we're not going to do this. We just took our first vacation that had nothing to do with business for the first time in 3 years. Amazing. Absolutely incredible. But we had been, when I was in medical device sales, we were taking a nice vacation every single year. Now we've taken other vacations through business and things like that, but it's not obviously the same. So you're going to have to give up this in order to get where we're at right now.
You give up to go up.
Yeah.
That's what John Maxwell always says. You give up to go up.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big sacrifice. I think people don't understand that when you go into business, you're going to give up something to go somewhere. Yeah. I know when I first started in business, I had one idea. I wanted to build a business because I started doing public speaking. And what I realized really quickly was I'm raising 6 kids. Mm-hmm. My whole life was going to revolve around traveling. Mm-hmm. And you can make great money. You can make phenomenal money, but you're going to live on the road. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. So I started another plumbing company is what I did. So with raising 6 kids, I never missed a football game, a soccer game. I built a business to where it allowed me the freedom to do exactly what you do.
Love it.
Every vacation, we never missed anything our kids ever did. So when a kid needed to be picked up from school at noon, I could pick them up from school at noon. Always built it around a system. And I'm sure you build systems in your business now. And I go back to what you talked about earlier, that you didn't have all the systems in place when you started hiring people versus thinking to themselves, like when I do coaching with somebody, first thing I tell them, let's start building out all your systems. Let's build out an operation manual, an employee manual. Let's build all the systems that you're going to need that's going to make your life simple. Mm-hmm. Then I want you to start, every time you do something, write it down and write a process. Write a process.
SOPs.
Holy shit, it makes a difference, dude.
Yeah.
Your stress level goes from here to here instantly. I mean, it changes how you do everything. So you're going to have a kid in a couple of days?
Yep, any day.
Girl or
boy?
Boy, that's exciting. So you love soccer, so obviously your son's going to play soccer.
Hopefully, yes.
At least we got a professional team in St. Louis City.
Yeah,
That's huge, dude. That's huge.
Yeah, it'll be good. So yeah, we're excited. We're at 38 weeks right now, but probably in the next week or so.
Dude, congratulations. And also, happy birthday to Adam. It's his birthday today. He's a big 32, right?
Yes,
32?
sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what a kid compared to me, right? I'm 20 years older than him. But that's okay. So, in business, what advice would you give to a young person who just got out of high school? They're not sure which way they want to go. Because you delved into different things. Mm-hmm. But I know sales being one of the most important things in any business. Every business revolves around sales. Mm-hmm. You don't know how to sell, you don't know how to communicate well, you're not going to go very far in anything in life, in my opinion, if you don't know how to communicate, at least in some way. So what would you tell a young kid just got out of high school, just got out of college, they're trying to figure their life out, what would you tell them to do?
So I would tell them 2 things. One is start with a side hustle. And everybody thinks that they have to create some like new idea like Uber. It's like, no, there's so many different ways to make money and for you to be your own boss. Get started on the side, and it doesn't have to be your forever thing. Like I have multiple businesses now. I have a lot of different things that are going on. And yes, digital marketing has been the vehicle for a lot of them. Right. But who knows what the forever thing will be, right? Get started there. But also get the experience that you're looking for. And sales is literally the best experience that you can go get. You can sell a lot of different stuff.
100%.
And so sales will be one of those transferable skill sets that regardless of what you do, you're going to be successful.
Right.
Now, if you're like, hey, I want to go be an apprentice somewhere, I want to work in construction, I want to be a carpenter, I want to do whatever, then you can go get that experience too while you're also doing the side hustle to be able to eventually maybe run your own carpentry business or plumbing, all those different things. I think people get so wrong where they're like, oh, I'm just going to go work a job, but they don't actually take the job for the skills.
Right.
They're going after the money or the short-term stuff, and then they spend their time outside playing video games or doing stupid stuff. And I did that all throughout college, so I can't say I'm just telling somebody if I were to go back and do it, I would be doing that differently. Because the people that, struggle the most are the ones that just went into something for the money. I have at different times in my life worked side jobs or done things growing up because I'm like, man, I want to learn more about that. I want to learn more about marketing. I want to learn more about HR. I want to learn more about those things. And so you don't necessarily have to just focus on the money that you're making,
right,
but focus on what you're going to get out of it.
Sure.
A lot of these things, exactly, a lot of those things are stepping stones. And so many people are like, man, I got to go into this because this is going to be my forever thing. Or they don't. They get decision fatigue where they're like, you know what? I'm going to overthink this. I'm not going to start the side hustle. I'm just going to go work for somebody else for 40, 50, 60 hours a week. And then I'm just going to chill the rest of the time. It's like, all right, you're not going to get what you want out of it to get you to that next level. And you're probably always going to be where you're at.
So do you feel like anybody can be an entrepreneur?
I've got asked that question before, and I think yes and no. It's a very tricky thing. And so what I've seen, because I've seen now being in a franchise model, so we have 20 franchises in addition to our corporate side, and having been a franchise myself, there's a lot of people that want to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
They want it, right? So they buy into the franchise, right? They pay all the money, they do all the stuff. But they're really just technicians. They're probably more so meant to be intrapreneurs than entrepreneurs. So I think if you truly at the core want it, anybody can do it. But most people, once they see the actual stuff that goes on the day-to-day, once they see that sometimes you got to float money from your personal account to pay for everybody's payroll, they don't know.
Done that?
Oh yeah, I've done it plenty of
Many
times. They don't want to actually do what it takes. They want to say that they're the entrepreneur, but there's a lot of people that I think would be better intrapreneurs, and there's a lot of people that are working for other people that if they just bet on themselves, they could be a great entrepreneur. So I think it kind of goes both ways.
And I think that's the biggest thing is you bet on yourselves, but I think also they don't really count the real cost.
Yeah.
They don't know the real cost of what it's going to take from them mentally, emotionally, financially, physically, in ways you can't even imagine, to where you got $2,000 to make payroll, $15,000. You're thinking, how the fuck am I going to make payroll? Like, how am I going to pay this goddamn payroll? And you're like, what do I do? Yeah. These are the realities of when you're in business, especially when you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. Because I know if you started tomorrow another business, Mark, I guarantee you could do it very successfully. Yeah. I tell people, I can start a service business tomorrow and grow it like that, like it's nothing. It's the simplest business in the world to start, in my opinion. This could be a plumbing company, HVAC, electrical, power wash. It doesn't matter. Anything service related, they're simple to start because I've done this 5 different times. But my first time around, oh brother, I cried so many times. I bet. I cried. I never wanted to just give up, but I cried. It was hard. Yeah. It was hard. So going back to your question of entrepreneurship, I've always said that I think anybody can be an entrepreneur, but not everybody should. Yeah, that's a good one. And the reason I say this is because, just like what you said, people don't truly count the cost. They like the idea of being one. They like the significance that it looks to other people. Like, oh, I have my own business. Well, great. Tell me about that. I was telling someone yesterday, I said, look, I talked to a person at a chamber event. I said, tell me, how your business? She goes, well, I haven't taken a paycheck in 3 years. And my first thought was, 3 years? If you would figure this out in 3 years, what the fuck are you doing? And then the next guy at the table said, well, I was in business too, and I didn't make any money, so I'm thinking, but this goes back to, you maybe should have been an entrepreneur. Yeah. Maybe you should have owned it because you weren't willing to look and measure, because my opinion of business is you measure everything that you do. Mm-hmm. Either it works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you got to kill it, or you got to change it, and you got to move it on to something different. Yeah. Because if you don't, it's hard. Like my wife, she's worked for MasterCard for 32 years. Phenomenal job. Got a great sugar mama. I love having a sugar mama. But she loves her job.
Yeah.
She'll tell you she would never do what I do. She would never start a business. Ever. And I think if you know that about yourself, that makes it so much easier versus that shiny object syndrome. Oh, they own a business. I can do this too.
Yeah.
You can do this, but are you willing to do the risky shit?
Yeah.
That's the hard
Well, it's the self-awareness too, right? So one of the things, and I was talking about this with our COO, and I was just like, hey, because we're trying to rebuild this sales department or build it up for the first time. And they're trying to take, my blueprint and try to like have me manage all these salespeople. And I'm like, that's not my strength. But where business owners typically go wrong is they're like, no, I'm the business owner. Like nobody can do sales better than me. Nobody can do marketing. Nobody can build the job as good as I can.
Right.
And they're so stuck in that mind. It's like if you're really good at those 15 different things, like there's probably 100 things that you're dropping the ball on.
100%.
And so part of the problem is that entrepreneurs aren't self-aware to either ask for the help and or give away control in areas that really, they're not that great at. Everybody thinks their shit doesn't stink. They're the greatest whatever, right? When you truly look yourself in the mirror, like that's one thing that I've done from the beginning because I don't want to be working in the business. And people say that they don't want to be working in the business, and then you're like, okay, well then why haven't you been out of the field in 5 years? Like you say you're going to hire the admin person.
They'll never do it done right. They'll never do it
or I can't find good help. Or my office admin, I've been through 6 of them in a year. So is it really the office admin, or it might be that you don't have any process and systems, or you're a terrible manager and boss? And a lot of people say that. I've been the same thing. Yeah.
My first business, I was probably the worst. I fired everybody for everything.
Yeah. So yeah.
You were a minute late to work. You do this, you're fired.
Yeah.
I was so bad at it, but I had to learn how to become a better leader.
Of course.
Is what I had to do. But what I learned that I thought was the most valuable for my life was I didn't want to work in the business. I didn't want to work in the field. I wanted to build a business. But it also took me having a good business coach.
Yeah.
It took me having someone to mentor me. The guy that we ended up hiring, he owned 27 companies.
It's a good resume.
I'm like, dude, this guy knows some shit.
Yeah.
But he told me, he said, Eric, if you're not going to listen to me, don't waste your money. That's the first thing he said. If you're not going to listen, do not spend your money because you're going to lose all your employees with what we're about to do. I'm like, no way, they all love me. He goes, you're going to lose your employees. I lost every employee. So we changed how we did business. They were used to X, and we changed to Y. And it was a culture shock for me. It was hard.
Yeah.
So fucking hard. So what do you think the hardest part about being in business is?
There's so many things that come into mind. I think it's really finding the right people. Like that's where our business really took off. So I was doing this on my own for almost a year, had 20 clients completely maxed out, started building out my team on the fulfillment side, started hiring client experience and account managers. And within 18 months, we went up to 120 clients.
That's good.
Amazing.
That's really good.
But the reason that a lot of it came in is I finally hired an integrator, the person that tied everything together, because I was trying to manage all these people and I was trying to be organized. And that's not me. I'm a visionary. Like I'm a visionary through and through. Like I have all the ideas in the world, but nobody to go do that. So when I found the right people, when I put the people in the right places too, because that was the other thing, I was like, oh, you'd be so good at this, you'd be so good at that. And I would just be like, this is your job. It's like, no, their skill set is completely aligned over here. So we implemented EOS, we did the core values, we did all those things. And that's when stuff started to take off because it's really easy in business to let your emotions, even though business is business and personal is personal, especially when it's your baby, it's really easy to let emotions take over. And so if you don't have those KPIs in your business, if you don't implement systems and things like that, it leads the way into this being emotional driven decisions instead of data driven decisions. Right. So once we started to do that coupled with the right people, it was just like, hey, this is either working or it's not. And the data and the numbers, the profit and loss is telling the story, not do I really, really like this person? I should probably make an exception even though, you got to manage and take the emotion out of it.
And that's the biggest people that if you've never been in business, you don't realize how emotional it can be and the attachment that you put towards something, put towards your business, put towards an idea. Because you could be, I'm like, this is the best idea in the world, but the idea's not making any money. So you've got to be willing to kill certain things that don't work in business. It's the hardest thing. And I would tell people, look, if you can't fire him, don't hire him.
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever had to fire well, you've never had to fire your own kid.
Yeah, I haven't.
Or a relative or something like that. I have. It's one of those things that it's really tough because the numbers say you got to do this.
Yes.
And the attitudes. We always say three things. Does the employee know what's expected of them? Mm-hmm. Has the employee been trained to do what's expected of them? But is the employee willing to do what's expected of them? Because it's your job as a leader to first of all make sure they know.
Yeah.
They know the vision. They know what it is. They know I'm talking exactly what. Hey, I need you to make 10 calls a day. Okay. So they made 10 calls. They called their brother. They called their sister. Called their aunt. I made 10 calls a day. Do you know what I mean? Specifically what you need, but then have you trained them to do what it is you want? Because if you've done 1 and 2, it's on them at that point.
Yeah.
Either they just don't want to do it, or so that means you have to get rid of them. Brian Tracy, he was a big mentor of mine. He always said, you hire slow, you fire fast.
Yes.
He said, do not wait. There was a video, an audio he did called Crunch Time, a 60-minute audio. I listened to this thing so many times. It gave me more balls than you could think of because I'm like, I'm so new and I don't know what to do, but I needed to understand how to do this. He's a phenomenal business mentor. All right, so let's change trajectory here. Real business, real life, real world scenario I'm going to give you. I was talking to a guy yesterday. He owns a moving company. Most people I talk to when I do consulting with them or coaching with them is they don't have their shit together at all. They don't have any systems in place. They don't have any processes. They don't have any tracking. They don't have any way to measure anything they do. This guy was 100% the opposite. 100% the opposite. He started a business. He purchased it, small business in 2020. Took it to $3.3 million a year already.
Wow.
That's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Because you realize only 5% of businesses ever do over $1 million in a year.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing that you get to do that. But here he is. He's doing really well, but now he's hit the slow season. So he owns a moving company in Florida. But now they don't have a slow month. They have a slow season. So we're going through all of his numbers, all of his marketing, everything that he's done, he's not done. He's doing the Google PPC, the Google local ads, he's doing the SEO. He's doing everything under the sun. He's maxed out his budget in Google. He's got his budget set like $1,000 a day for his Google pay-per-click. So he's hitting those maxes. Or he's not even getting to those maxes as far as lead generation. And I'm thinking to myself, how do we get him the lead? Because his problem right now is leads. He's got all the processes. He's got everything in place that he can do, but without the leads, he can't do anything. His employees are starting to sit. They're starting to have nothing to do. So what would you do? What would you tell a guy like this? Because he literally has done everything. I spent an hour and a half on the phone, and I'm pretty good at solving problems in business, but I'm like, I couldn't solve this one. This was a tough, but I'm going to talk to a guy tomorrow.
Yeah.
So my podcast, he's an expert.
Yeah.
He's going to fucking solve your problems just like that.
So it's a really crazy scenario. I would say very few times of the businesses that we've ever worked with are people 100% maxed out. But I have heard that happen, right? So looking at it from the other angle, right? So I started an auto glass company because I had a random website that started producing 600 calls a month. And it's like, all right, so we start day one with 600 calls a month.
Right.
So we start with the thing that most companies don't start with, which is all of the leads.
Right.
But we don't have all the traditional marketing down. We don't have the relationships. We don't have the brand. We don't have all of those other things. That is the exact same situation that happens during slow season. Because there's only so many leads that are out there. If they're capping out all of their different things, it's because people literally don't have the demand for their service, right? But where things still are occurring is relationships. For a moving company, for example, because we work with a lot of those, with realtors, with people that help out with relocation, HR companies that help out with those relocations. It's building those relationships that you can typically count based on the time of the year. It's like, okay, this is how many leads we're probably going to get from those people. Then you couple that with the digital side. Because the digital side is very up and down based on time of year because it's search intent, because it's ad intent, because there's dollars going out and dollars coming back in. Those relationships, though, the traditional marketing, the guerrilla marketing, those types of things should be pretty consistent year round. And typically what we see is that most people have, or they try to do the traditional, the guerrilla, all of that stuff, and then we have to add the digital marketing round. And so that's a much easier thing to do versus, hey, we're capped out at digital. We got to go figure out what's right here. But a lot of times it's just time of the year. So it's really taking a look at historical data to figure out one of two things. Well, one, the past 3 years, a lot of people have been moving.
100%. Yeah.
And so we're seeing this with all of our moving clients, a lot of our contracting businesses. The last 3 years, there have been inflated numbers. So they're like, man, this time last year, I was spending so much, the same amount of money, but I was getting so many more leads. Well, if the leads aren't there because people aren't moving, then there's nothing you can do. It's the it's the industry, it's the economy, it's all those different types of things. So I would say it's probably more of a grassroots type of approach that they need to double down on those types of things
so
because
you say like an outside salesperson.
Yeah,
going
absolutely.
to networking events, meeting people.
100%.
Because that's something they've not done is the outside sales.
Yep.
He's got 2 sales guys, but they
Inbound.
handle inbound sales.
Inbound, yep.
We did ask that question. I said, so what's the difference between an outside salesperson if he goes and gives a bid in person versus over the phone? Because in that, they have a whole software that figures, they just ask all these questions, it figures out all what it's going to cost, they just plug in numbers. He said, but our close rate's 20 to 30% higher outside at the place. And, then of course we talked about doing more commercial. I'm like, well, that you should start focusing on that right now, is what's outside.
Yes.
That guerrilla marketing side of it. And that's a good thing to say because to me, it's the relationships. It's because there is another company there locally who does $43 million a year. So I know there's business, but it's so how do we take that business from that company and bring it to you? Because he's got a phenomenal business.
Yeah.
To go to $3.3 million in 3 years is pretty damn good for a business.
Pretty damn good for sure. And it's typically those other things that outside of the people that have gone to that $43 million a year company, they're typically not finding them on social media. Or Google or wherever, right? Or wherever the ads are going, wherever the SEO is going. You got to go figure out where they're getting that business. And typically they're getting that business because they've built a brand, because they're doing the outside sales, because they're doing those other things. The digital marketing is just one wing of the entire strategy. So there's a lot of times where people are like, man, I want to start spending more. It's like the ads aren't even spending the money that they are because there's not the stuff there. We can up the budget all you want, but it's not going to spend. It's just going to sit there. What would it look like to go do that? The other thing that's big is remarketing and retargeting or email activation campaigns. So sending past clients emails, sending them stuff about referrals. Like, hey, if you know anybody, we'll pay you X amount if they end up signing up a referral fee. All those other types of things, you got to couple that. But so many businesses get it wrong where they're like, hey, if I can just solve digital marketing or marketing in general, it's going to solve all my problems in the business. It's like, no. It's an up and down, very volatile type of situation because your competitors can start doing it. There's a lot of other things that go into factor. You can only control what you can control in terms of the daily activity. How many cold calls are you making? How many hands are you shaking? How many business cards are you handing out? That stuff is scalable for you to know, okay, here's how much I should anticipate coming in.
So how do you meet the right people doing it? Let's say you're in that business. Like he's in the moving business. Phenomenal company, great culture. Has done a phenomenal job building his business with all the systems that he needs. So how does he go about that? What's the one step he takes to get himself to where he can brand it personally, whether he's using outside sales reps, himself, or whatever he does? What does he got to do?
So the easiest thing is organic social media as the owner of the company. And within that, there's a ton of local free.
What does that mean, organic social media as the owner?
So not doing it from your business page. Doing it from, hey, I am Eric, I am Adam, the CEO of Adam's Moving Company.
Right.
And so when you do it like that, and you're posting consistently on your Facebook page and then going into the free local Facebook groups and building up momentum there, that's where people are going to continuously find you. Because the cheapest and the easiest way to get more business is in those groups where everybody's like, who should I hire to, move my company or remove my junk or I have a plumbing problem? They're always going there. Right. So I would almost have somebody, if it's not an admin or outside sales rep, like cornering those free groups, building up reputation and momentum there, and getting other people to tag you in those posts too, because those posts are consistently happening almost every single day. Secondarily is they need to be going and figuring out, okay, like if they're not taking a look at their best clients. So who's your ideal client? It's a family of 5. They live in these zip codes. Their house is about $500,000, whatever the dynamics are. You got to figure out where those people are hanging out and who those decision makers are.
Right.
Typically, obviously, the realtors are somebody that is going to be able to help them, mortgage loan officers, insurance agents, things like that. But where people go wrong is they're like, okay, now I get it. I got to go talk to realtors. It's like, no, you have to go talk to the realtors that are selling those $500,000 houses, not just any realtor.
Right.
So you got to start to connect the dots and do more digging and research in your market to figure out who those key players are. I did it no differently than our clients are nationwide. I did it on a nationwide basis, but I also did it locally here in St. Louis.
Right.
What I would do is I would go figure out who those key decision makers are, and I would start supporting them. So I'd go like their comment, I'd go share their stuff, I'd go do all that stuff. And it's not as much of a, hey, I do this for you and automatically I'm going to get 10 leads. It's a build-up effect. But if you have enough lines in the water, along with your organic social media and you're tackling those groups, finally that realtor that's selling all those $500,000 plus homes that needs a key moving company is finally going to be like, man, Eric keeps promoting me and doing stuff for me.
Right.
I just have to ask him, like, yeah, I have to give him some time of day. And then once you get in there, it's like, okay, that's where things continue to blow up.
Because that's the toughest part, is because when you're maxed out yourself, you have to pretty much hire someone to go do that networking because your time is maxed out already.
Absolutely.
And that is the biggest challenge you have. You're trying not to work in the business, but sometimes you get sucked into the business.
Yeah.
You know, I had years ago, my fault, that I had an office manager quit in the middle of the day. I had no idea the shit she did. I was like, fuck, what do I do? And I literally had to go learn all these things that she did. But I learned a lesson. I created systems and processes and wrote everything down. I mean, man, I made this so good to where, I don't care who I hired, they just, I said, read
Walk
the book.
right in.
Read the book. This is exactly what we do, how we do it. I mean, this guy is tremendous business owner, but I think that maybe he just lacks in that one area where he's just got to. Would you tell him to be a little more patient? Because that's hard to tell someone to be patient when they know they need money to come in, they know they need leads for it to come in.
I would say like be patient, but also if they're not doing those activities that we just talked about, that's not necessarily being patient. That's not being proactive in those other areas. That's putting a lot of your eggs in one basket, right? So like we had that problem in our auto glass company. We weren't building the relationships for the first year. We weren't going and getting commercial accounts. Well, now we have FedEx, UPS, Amazon, all those things because we built the relationships with those auto glass companies. So we know on the commercial account side and on the referral side what we can expect based on the time of the year. Now, the digital marketing is just cherry on, icing on the cake, right?
Oh, yeah.
But we relied for that first year on just like, hey, we're the #1 result on Google. Everybody's going to call us.
Oh,
well, it's like, yeah, that's great. But it's a very up and down situation. So if you don't do that other aspect, like you really have to have a full-fledged marketing approach. And even a company that literally is the #1 result on Google, we have 5 trucks on the road now. It was fine when we had 1 or 2 trucks, but we need more work.
Right.
So you got to find those other ways. You got to think outside of the box and do different things.
So what about adding additional services? Adding services to what you already do, things that would complement what you're doing.
It depends on what those are and how they play in. Of course, obviously, profitability being a huge aspect of that. Is it going to be a very, very profitable thing, or is it a thing that we're just adding to keep people busy? Because I've also seen a lot of companies, they'll add something. Like right now, a lot of people are trying to add Christmas light installation to their business to keep people busy. It's like, it's going to cost you a lot of money, a lot of insurance, a lot of headaches. You have no business doing that. Or is it like, hey, we're going to start offering, packing and all those other types of services. Obviously, I have no idea who the business is. But if it's a complimentary service that is relatively high profit margin, that's not going to add a bunch of stress to the business, then it probably makes a little bit of sense to look into it. But I also think just adding services to add services because of a downtime is not necessarily they can hurt you more than you do it. It's probably going to blurry the vision short term because you're probably going to be able to go make posts and email past customers and send out text messages, say, hey, we're doing this. People already know, like, and trust you for the most part, right? So they're going to reach out and they're going to do it. Well, then you realize, man, we don't necessarily have SOPs down. We don't know what we're doing. And then it takes away from the influx of new business when you go and get that new referral partner or when digital marketing leads take up. Because, like, we were going to add window tinting to our auto glass company. Everybody was asking for it, all those different things. It's not super simple and easy to do. So we were trying to practice it on the side, trying to train people and do all those things. We're like, man, it's not going to make sense. It makes immediate sense because people are asking for us, so we probably make some money, but we're going to spend so much time trying to make this a true service in our business that we're going to miss phone calls, that we're not going to be able to do enough auto glass jobs, the things that we already have basically automated.
I always said, find those things in your business that are the most profitable and focus on those.
Yeah.
And you can do some of those other things that are there, but you always have to decide, this is what we want to do, this is what we don't want to do.
Yeah.
Because what you don't want to do is equally as important as what you want to do. Because it'll eat your time.
Oh, yeah.
It'll eat you, dude. I've tried to do shit that I should have never done. And I mean, I paid for it financially. I paid for it in ways. I bought a machine, a $40,000 sewer jetter. I never wanted to do that kind of stuff. I didn't want to do that kind of business. But I hired an employee, then he ended up quitting. He was the only one who knew how to use that $40,000 machine. I did not like that part of the business. I did not enjoy it. I didn't want to do it. I just did not want to do that. But I let my emotions dictate the financial decision. I bought it. It was a fun tool. I used it one time for my subjects. I wanted to see how to use it.
Yeah.
It's a cool tool, but it's $40,000.
We did the same thing we have a $25,000 calibration piece that one of our old technicians told us to buy because he saw it at his old company. We couldn't even use it. It wasn't mobile. So he worked at a company, because we're 100% mobile. He didn't realize that you can't use it on the road, but we bought it. I didn't buy it, but our team did.
Right.
And we're sitting there like, it's just sitting in storage. So eventually when we get but it's just an example exactly what you're talking about. Is like we thought like, oh, once we get this piece of equipment, everything is going to change.
Yes.
I'll tell you, like in our marketing company in 2021, we did $750,000 in business. We did 1.75 last year. We were more profitable at 750 than we were at 1.75 because we didn't have a lot of those key systems in place tying the growth together. So I would also say when times are down, they're usually down for everybody. So I would say he's probably not doing anything wrong per se. He could add those organic outreach type stuff, but now's a perfect time. Obviously he's working with you, is to get those systems down for growth, because an extra $1 million in revenue could be a lot less profitable and could cost them a lot more money just trying to say, hey, we really want to grow. It might not be the right time to do it.
And a good example is I was talking to a company, they're doing $4 million a year, but they're losing $20,000 a month.
Yeah, it's not a good place to be.
On paper, you go, oh yeah, we do $4 million a year. I'm like, oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But we're losing $20,000 a month.
What's your EBITDA?
I'm like, what the fuck, dude? I mean, that doesn't even, it's not even worth doing.
Yeah.
And all that, but I think when you're at a slow point in business, I always say this: use this as a time to reflect. What's working? What's not working? What can we do better? What can we change? What can we get rid of? What can we add? But is it going to be profitable? And does it not just profitable financially, but for your time as well? Because you don't get your time back. When your time is gone, it is 100% gone. You can always make more money. So I like what you said. You make more money profitably at a lower rate, at being $750,000 versus $1.7 million. But what did it give you to be at 1.7 for you personally? It could probably give you more, because you talk about systems that you didn't have in place at that time. Now you have all these systems, but it gives you more freedom. Now you're buying time.
And I also now have a bigger team to be able to get to that next level. Because that was one of the things, and I kind of knew going from 750, because we were at 5 employees, and I knew we were going to have to go to 10, and I was going to have to bring on 5 rock stars, not entry-level employees. So when we did that jump to get to 1.75, I knew I had to hire those key people in place to get us to the 3 million trajectory that we're at right now.
100%.
But if I didn't have that vision, I could have looked at it and been like, crap, like, why did I do this? I could have stopped and said, okay, hey, I'm just going to go back down to 750 because I'm making more money. But then I would be like, I was working 14, 15-hour days at that 750. So on paper, it's more profitable as well. But a lot of people don't have that aspect. They don't have that outlook. They're just like, all right, I got to get to 1.75 because it's the cool thing to do. Well, if you lose all your shit on that way and you're still chaotic and you're still in the business, like I strategically brought people on. I could have been paying myself a lot more and just said, hey, I'm going to continue to do the work until we get here. But if I would have continued the work to get to 1.75 million, it would have been really hard to try to scale and get any further than that because I didn't have the team, the assets in place in the process to do so.
You're a forward-looking person.
Yeah, of course.
Because if you're not forward-looking in business, and I'm okay with someone, if they want to go into business and they want to just be a solopreneur. I'm totally okay with that. My daughter owns her own business, and she's owned it for 4 years. She does eyelashes. And when she got out of school, I said, don't get a job, start a business. She reluctantly listened. She said, well, what if it doesn't work? I said, trust me, it'll work. We'll make this shit work. And I ran one simple ad on Facebook for $135. She stayed busy for a year.
Wow.
I'm like, but that would say good business for women, pay money for shit. I'm just like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
But that's like consistency. Her business is all about repeat.
Yeah, lifetime value.
These ladies, they don't ever stop. But the point is if she's okay with just doing it herself, I'm okay with it as a business. But if you want to build a business with time and life and freedom, you're going to have to build a system around your business. This is why I love franchises too. Now, I've looked into some franchises myself, but if you buy a franchise, what are you buying? You're buying
processes and systems.
Processes and systems, and you're buying the know exactly what to do to do it. Shit, it makes your life so much fucking easier.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Dude, when I look back, I'm like, if I would have only known what I know now. I read 2 books on how to start a business. That's how I started my business. I spent 6 months preparing, read 2 books, got all the licensing, did everything else. I quit a perfectly good job. I was making really good money, and then I started a business with nothing, with 0 customers. But I built it to 11,000 customers in 7 years, and and I ended up selling the business. I did the same thing with another business, and then it's not hard to do. But it is hard to do.
Yeah.
That's the reality. It is hard to do. Sometimes it makes you cry. You're like, what the fuck was I thinking, dude?
Yeah.
Why would I ever hurt myself and stress myself out so much over something? So that's exciting. So now that you're going to have a kid, today's your birthday, your life's moving forward, you have all these good things. So what's the next step for you?
Yeah. So right now we're focusing on mergers and acquisitions to bring into Height for agencies. So there's a lot of agencies right now that are struggling, that maybe have been doing some revenue, but they don't have the processing system. Their client experience sucks. So we're actively looking at potentially to bring on 3 to 4 agencies here the next year. And then for me, as I've stepped out really in the day-to-day, my goal is to work myself completely out of the day-to-day in the next 12 months.
And just do podcasts every day.
That would be goal. That would be the goal.
That'd be a cool for sure, dude.
It would be. But I started to do some entrepreneurial coaching. So I coach 3 people here in a small group setting. I want to obviously speak more, do more podcasts, but do more consulting. So consulting for equity, ideally. So you can go start a service business from the ground up because hey, here's all the processing systems. I can go start service businesses from the marketing side.
Right.
So we have a couple ideas for other businesses that we want to do here in St. Louis, but I want to take those online assets and then parlay them into equity in companies. So I want to build this auto glass 600 calls a month and say to a struggling auto glass company that really needs to get to that next level, hey, don't pay me for this, but let me get equity in the company and let me be a consultant on the marketing side to tie in your print, all your other types of marketing and bring it together. So I have a couple opportunities that I'm kind of looking at right now. That's really what I'm excited about because I've seen what we've been able to do with the auto glass and what we've been able to do with the landscape design company. I'm like, man, I want to do more of that. I just don't have the time to do it right now. So that's the end goal here over the next couple of years, is to really focus my time on how can I help more people, help more businesses, but have a little bit more of a shared space where I can focus on 3 to 4 companies at a time and go and do that.
It gives you a lot more buy-in, and I've seen you really impact a lot of businesses.
I appreciate that.
I know we obviously share a friend Kyle, and I saw how you impacted his business to where it's rare to see a business grow because I can build a business from scratch like it's nothing, but you know what it is? I hire a marketing company.
Yeah.
I always do. I'm not going to market the business myself.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to figure out the algorithms, the pay-per-click, the this or that. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, of course.
That's a waste of my time. I'm not good at that. Why would I ever waste my time doing that? Now, I built my first websites, and did they suck? Oh, did they suck? They were so bad.
You got to start somewhere, though.
But I was okay building it because I realized I could make money from that website because people didn't really care too much about that. They were buying me.
They were,
because I networked and I networked and I networked. Because when I started my first company, the first thing I did is I joined the Chamber of Commerce. I started networking. And instantly business started rolling just through just basic networking. Because when you're going to business by yourself, you don't have the money to spend on advertising. You may not have any money for advertising. So how are you going to get business? Through networking.
Yep.
Through your friends,
word
through
of
your
mouth.
family, or word of mouth. You're going to drive that business through guerrilla marketing. We learned all those techniques. And I tell people all the time, look, if you're going to be in business, get out there and network yourself to everybody else. That's the way, because they'll never hire you if they don't know you exist.
Yes.
And how many times have you seen, well, I didn't know you did that.
All the time.
It's like, dude, if you want people to hire you, make sure they know that you're actually in business and this is what you do. All right, so we're about an hour in, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Yeah. So something I do, on my podcast, and I had this really cool. I love books, so you can see that I love books, and that's one thing I love to do is I love to learn, I love to read. But this book's called 3,000 Questions About Me. I have no idea what I'm about to ask you. I'm just going to open the book and ask you a random question, and it's going to give you a random answer. So, but I appreciate you, first of all. I want to say to Adam, I appreciate the fact that he's taking the time to help us and share with every one of you what he does and how he does. So, before I give you the question, is this. Tell them how you could help them and how they could get a hold of you as a marketing agent. Because, dude, I know your business. I know how good you guys are. So let people know how they could get a hold of you, because I know how you want to change their lives. Yeah. You're not just about the transaction. You're about the relationship.
I appreciate that.
That's one thing I know about you.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So you can connect with me on social media. On Instagram is going to be the easiest place. That's Adam L. McChesney. You can also go to AdamMcChesney.com. You can see all the different stuff about Height Digital. We're a full-service agency. We do everything from logo branding, web design, SEO, Google PPC, and Facebook ads. And just really appreciate the opportunity, Eric. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. This is so exciting. So, guys, seriously, Adam walks the walk, talks the talk. He does it all. He's not just one of those guys who's a showboater. He's the one who actually does it every single day. He's built the businesses. You've heard how he's built the businesses. Utilize the guy.
Appreciate it.
Call him up, get his phone number, get his email, whatever the fuck it takes. Just make some shit happen, because he'll make your life better. All right, so random question. Here we go. We're just going to open it. We don't know what we're going to get. The drum roll goes, and here's a good one. What makes you vulnerable?
What makes me vulnerable? I would say my insecurities, and I've had to really come to terms with that. I've struggled with different things in the past, and I've been so reluctant, because we live in a world of social media where, of course, people look up to me. And the more and more that I've opened up about, here's what I'm struggling with. I stopped drinking alcohol for 7.5 months. And I've started to drink a little bit again, but I was really struggling with it at that time. And I started talking about that. I started talking about struggles that I was having in the business. And the more I started to open up and come to terms with that, I realized I wasn't alone. And so people started to share their stories with me and be like, Adam, you just helped me come to terms with my own struggles as well. And so I've gotten really vulnerable over the last year, and it's made podcast interviews better. It's made my YouTube, all the different content that I'm doing better, because people don't just look at me. And I don't think people look at anybody. Exactly. I don't think anybody looks at anybody on social media and is like, wow, they're always crushing it, because in reality, there's plenty of downtimes. Oh my God, yes. The more and more that I've shared, the more people have came to trust me. Like, they knew they liked me. They knew who I was, but now they're like, man, like, Adam is that guy, and he's not perfect, but none of us are.
No, and being vulnerable, you expose yourself to everybody's opinions of you.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part, I think.
It
is that the fact that you're willing to be vulnerable, I want to say how much I appreciate that.
Of course.
Because people are always going to judge you whether you are or whether you're not. So why don't you just let them see the real you?
Exactly.
Let them see that you're just a human being. You have struggles. We have struggles. I have struggles. Everybody has struggles. I mean, when my son committed suicide, we never would have thought that. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, why do you keep talking about it? I'm like, I talk about it because I think it's good to talk about, because what you said was, you change somebody's life by sharing something about your own personal and your own struggles. Mm-hmm. I had someone the other day say, Eric, what you post and share has really changed my life. Mm. That's huge to me.
Yeah.
It's about, but I have to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So being vulnerable is a big one. It's scary. It's fucking scary, because it puts you out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's scary.
It's a gut check.
All right, well, look, Adam McChesney, thank you guys so much for listening to our podcast. Thank you for watching the podcast. We appreciate you being here. If you need to reach out to Adam, make sure you reach out to Adam. If you need anything from me, you can always text me on my cell phone, 314-591-0479. Remember, this is Business for Beginners, where we share the good, the bad, and the funny. This is raw and unscripted, truthful business knowledge for the aspiring entrepreneur. Thank you so much for watching.